Keth pressed his small body against the cold stone wall of the ruined temple. His amber scales had lost their bright shine weeks ago. Now they looked dull and gray like old metal left in the rain. The little dragonling was about the size of a house cat, but his eyes held the sadness of someone much older. The twin suns of Zephyria Prime were setting again. Keth had counted 97 sunsets since his mother died. Each day felt longer than the last. His stomach hurt from hunger, but he barely noticed anymore. The empty feeling in his heart was much worse than any physical pain. Keth remembered the last day he saw his mother. She had been beautiful, with scales that sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. Her mind voice had been warm and loving, always telling him stories of the old days when dragonlings lived happily with many different kinds of beings from across the stars. Long ago, she would say, our people shared their hearts with creatures from 100 different worlds. We gave them our love and they gave us theirs. It made both sides stronger and happier. But those days were gone. The Void Raiders had made sure of that. Keth shivered as he remembered that terrible day. The black ships had come from nowhere, filling the sky like angry storm clouds. His mother had grabbed him in her claws and flown as fast as she could to the old temple in the mountains. She had hidden him deep inside the stone walls. "Stay here, little one," she had said, her mind voice tight with fear. "No matter what happens, stay hidden until I come back for you." She never came back. Keth had waited for 3 days before hunger forced him to leave his hiding spot. When he finally crept outside, the valley below was empty and silent. All the other dragonlings were gone. The raiders had taken some and killed others. His mother's body lay at the bottom of the cliff, her beautiful scales now dark and still. That was when the real loneliness began. Dragonlings were not meant to live alone. Keth's people had evolved to form deep mind bonds with other creatures. They needed the warmth of friendship and love like plants needed sunlight. Without it, they slowly faded away. Keth felt that fading happening to him now. Each day, his psychic abilities grew weaker. His scales lost more of their color. Even his thoughts seemed to move more slowly, like thick honey on a cold day. He tried calling out with his mind, sending thoughts across the empty landscape. "Is anyone there? Please, I need help. I need someone to care about me." But the only answers he got were from the small animals that lived in the rocks. They felt sorry for him, but they could not give him the kind of bond he needed to survive. The temple where Keth lived had once been a place of joy. Ancient carvings on the wall showed dragonlings playing with beings from many different worlds. There were tall creatures with 4 arms, small furry ones with big eyes and others that looked like living crystals. All of them were shown sharing happiness and friendship, but now the temple was just a lonely pile of old stones. Wind whistled through the broken walls, making sad music that matched Keth's mood. Rain leaked through cracks in the ceiling, forming puddles that reflected his tired face. Keth found some old fruits growing wild near the temple, but they tasted bitter and did not fill the empty space inside him. He drank water from a small stream that ran down from the mountains. The water was clean and cold, but it could not wash away his sadness. At night, Keth curled up in a nest he had made from soft moss and old cloth he found in the temple ruins. He would close his eyes and try to remember what it felt like when his mother's mind touched his. The memory was warm and safe, like being wrapped in a soft blanket on a cold night. But memories were not enough. Keth needed real connection, real love from a living being. His species had a saying, "A dragonling alone is a dragonling dying." Keth was learning how true those words were. As the days passed, Keth noticed changes in himself. His psychic calls for help were getting weaker. Sometimes he would forget to eat for a whole day. His legs felt shaky when he tried to walk, and his mind felt foggy and confused. The small animals that lived near the temple started to avoid him. They could sense the sadness that poured off him like heat from a fire. Even the birds stopped singing when he was near. It was as if his loneliness was spreading, making everything around him feel empty and cold. Keth knew he was running out of time. Soon he would be too weak to call for help at all. Soon he would join his mother and all the other dragonlings who were gone forever. But something deep inside him refused to give up completely. Maybe it was instinct or maybe it was hope. Every sunset, Keth climbed to the highest tower of the temple and sent out one more psychic call. He put all his remaining strength into it, sending his thoughts as far across the stars as he could reach. "Please," he whispered into the empty air, his mind voice barely a whisper now. Someone, anyone. I do not want to die alone. I just want someone to love me, and someone to love in return. That is all any Dragonling has ever wanted. The wind carried his words away into the gathering darkness. The twin suns disappeared behind the mountains, leaving Keth alone with the cold stars. He did not know that far away, across the vast emptiness of space, someone with a kind heart and a sensitive mind was about to hear his desperate call for help. Keth curled up in his moss nest and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would try again. He had to keep trying. It was the only thing left that he could do. Dr. Lisa Martinez was working late in her lab aboard the human ship Starfire when the world suddenly changed around her. One moment she was studying plant samples from their last planet visit, and the next moment she was on her knees, gasping for breath as waves of terrible loneliness crashed through her mind. It felt like drowning in sadness. Lisa could hardly breathe as emotions that were not her own filled every corner of her thoughts. She felt hunger, cold, and a desperate need for love that was so strong it made her heart ache. Mixed with all of this was the voice of a child, calling out across impossible distances for someone, anyone, to care. "Help me," the voice whispered in her mind. "Please, I do not want to be alone anymore." Lisa had always been different from other humans. Since childhood, she could sometimes hear the thoughts and feelings of others, especially when they were in great pain or fear. Her parents had taken her to many doctors, but none could explain her gift. As an adult, she had learned to control it and use it to help her work with alien animals and plants, but she had never felt anything this strong before. This was not just telepathy. This was a direct plea from one mind to another, crossing the empty space between stars. Lisa stumbled to her feet and ran toward the ship's bridge. Her legs felt weak and shaky, and tears were streaming down her face. The emotions from the distant child were still flowing through her mind, making it hard to think clearly. The bridge was quiet when she arrived. Most of the crew was asleep, but Captain Jake Sullivan was still there, reading reports at his command chair. He looked up when Lisa burst through the doors, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Lisa, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost," Jake said, standing up quickly. "There's a child," Lisa gasped, still fighting against the waves of sadness in her mind. "Somewhere out there, there's a child who's dying of loneliness. It's calling for help. I can hear it in my head." Jake frowned and activated his medical scanner. "Are you feeling okay? Maybe you should go to the medical bay. Dr. Rodriguez can check you over." "No, you don't understand." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "This is real. There's a telepathic child somewhere in this star system, and it's dying. We have to help it." Jake looked at Lisa carefully. He had known her for 3 years, and she had never acted like this before. She was one of the most stable and reliable people on his crew. If she said something was wrong, he had learned to listen. "Tell me what you're hearing," he said quietly. Lisa closed her eyes and tried to focus on the voice in her mind. It was getting weaker now, but it was still there. It's small and scared. It keeps saying it doesn't want to die alone. It's hungry and cold, and it's been waiting for someone to find it for a long time. As Lisa spoke, other crew members began arriving on the bridge. Chief Engineer Ben Carter had heard the commotion from his quarters down the hall. Navigator Amy Foster came up from the lower deck where she had been working on star charts. Soon half the crew was gathered around, listening to Lisa's description of the desperate child calling for help. "Even if what you're hearing is real," Jake said slowly, "we don't know where this child is. Space is big, Lisa. There are millions of places it could be." Lisa pressed her hands to her temples, trying to focus on the psychic signal. "It's close. I can feel the direction it's coming from. Amy, do you have charts for the nearby systems?" Amy quickly pulled up a holographic map of local space. "There are 6 star systems within 50 light-years of our current position. 3 of them have planets that could support life." Lisa studied the map, then pointed to one system near the edge of the display. "There, that's where it's coming from. The system with the twin suns." Amy's face went pale. "Lisa, that's the Zephyria system. It's been marked as off-limits by the Galactic Authority. No ships are supposed to go there. Why not?" Ben Carter asked. Amy pulled up the official records. "It says here that the system was attacked by Void Raiders 6 months ago. All native life was declared extinct. The Authority marked it as a dead zone." Lisa felt her heart racing. "That's it. That's exactly it. The child has been alone since the attack. Its family is gone, and it's been waiting all this time for someone to come back for it." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. They all knew about Void Raiders. They were pirates who attacked peaceful worlds, stealing anything valuable and destroying what they couldn't take. The idea that a child had been left behind after such an attack made everyone feel sick. Ben Carter was the first to speak up. He was a big man with calloused hands and a heart that was even bigger than his muscles. Back on Earth, he had 2 children of his own, and the thought of any child suffering alone was more than he could bear. "If there's a kid out there who needs help, then we help," he said firmly. "I don't care what the Galactic Authority says. A child is a child." "Ben's right," Amy said, her voice quiet but determined. "We can't just leave it there to die." Jake looked around at his crew. He could see the same determination in all their faces. These were good people, and they would never forgive themselves if they walked away from a child in need. But he also knew the risks. "If we go to Zephyria, we'll be breaking Galactic Authority regulations," he said. "We could lose our exploration license. We could even be arrested." "So what?" Ben said. "Some things are more important than following rules. What's the point of exploring the galaxy if we can't help the people we find out here?" Lisa felt the child's voice getting weaker in her mind. Time was running out. "Please, Jake, I know this sounds crazy, but I can feel how much pain it's in. It's just a baby and it's so scared. We might be its only chance." Jake looked at each member of his crew one more time. He saw Amy already working on navigation calculations for the Zephyria system. He saw Ben checking their supply levels to make sure they had everything they might need for a rescue mission. He saw the ship's medical officer, Dr. Sam Rodriguez, preparing emergency medical supplies. These people had become his family over the years they had served together. He trusted them completely, and he could see that they had already made their choice. Now it was time for him to make his. "Amy, set course for Zephyria Prime," Jake said. "Maximum speed." "Yes, sir." Amy's fingers flew over her controls. Course laid in. "We can be there in 18 hours. As the Starfire turned toward the Zephyria system, Lisa felt the child's voice in her mind once more. It was barely a whisper now, but it carried a tiny spark of hope. "Hold on, little one," Lisa whispered. "We're coming. You're not alone anymore." The Starfire dropped out of hyperspace near Zephyria Prime, just as the twin suns were rising over the planet's crystal mountains. Lisa stood on the bridge, her hands pressed against the viewing window, feeling the psychic signal growing stronger with every passing minute. "There," she pointed to a cluster of ruins high in the northern mountains. "The signal is coming from those old buildings." Captain Jake Sullivan studied the planet through the ship's sensors. What he saw made his heart heavy. The surface was scarred with blast marks from the Raider attack. Burned forests stretched for miles, and the remains of what had once been beautiful cities lay in twisted ruins. "No wonder the Authority declared this place dead," Dr. Sam Rodriguez said quietly. "Those Raiders really did a number on this world." Amy Foster was working at her navigation station, trying to find a safe place to land. "The area around those ruins is stable, but we'll have to set down about 2 miles away. The ground closer to the temple is too rocky for the ship." "That's fine," Jake said. "We'll take the shuttle from there." "Lisa, are you picking up anything else? Any other survivors?" Lisa closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, searching the planet's surface for any sign of life. She could feel small animals moving through the forests and some larger creatures hiding in caves, but there was only one intelligent mind calling out for help. "Just the one," she said sadly. "Just the child." 20 minutes later, the Starfire touched down in a clearing near the base of the mountains. Jake assembled a small away team, himself, Lisa, Dr. Rodriguez, and Security Chief Rick Stone. Ben Carter wanted to come too, but someone needed to stay with the ship in case they had to leave quickly. The shuttle ride to the temple ruins was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what they might find when they got there. Lisa had described the child's condition as best she could, but telepathic impressions were not the same as medical facts. They had no idea what species the child belonged to, how badly injured it might be, or whether they would be able to help it at all. As they flew over the mountainside, Lisa could see the ruins getting closer. The buildings had once been beautiful, with tall spires and walls covered in intricate carvings. Now most of the structures were broken and empty, their stones scattered by wind and weather. "The signal is strongest in that central building," Lisa said, pointing to a partially collapsed tower. "The child is in there somewhere." The shuttle landed in a small courtyard near the main temple. As soon as the doors opened, Lisa felt the child's emotions wash over her like a cold wave. Fear, hope, and desperate loneliness all mixed together. But underneath it all was something else. A tiny spark of curiosity. The child knew they were coming. The away team made their way carefully through the rubble-filled passages of the temple. Ancient carvings on the walls showed scenes of different alien species living and working together. Lisa paused to study one carving that showed small dragon-like creatures playing with beings that looked remarkably like humans. Interesting, Dr. Rodriguez murmured. These dragon creatures seem to have been very social. Look at all these images of them interacting with other species. That explains the telepathy, Lisa said. If they evolved to form bonds with other species, they would need some way to communicate across the language barrier. The psychic signal was getting stronger as they climbed higher into the tower. Lisa's heart was pounding, and she could feel the child's excitement growing. It knew they were close now. Finally, they reached a small chamber near the top of the tower. Lisa stopped at the doorway, her breath catching in her throat. There, in a nest made of soft moss and scraps of old cloth, was the most beautiful and heartbreaking sight she had ever seen. The dragonling was small, about the size of a house cat, with scales that had once been bright amber but were now dull and gray. Its large golden eyes were fixed on the doorway, and Lisa could see intelligence and hope shining in them. But she could also see how thin and weak the little creature was. Its ribs showed through its scales, and its breathing was shallow and labored. "Oh, you poor little thing," Dr. Rodriguez whispered, immediately pulling out his medical scanner. Lisa stepped forward slowly, holding out her hand the way she would approach any frightened animal. But as soon as she took that first step, something amazing happened. The dragonling's eyes met hers, and suddenly her mind was flooded with images and emotions that were not her own. She saw the child's memories, a loving mother with bright, beautiful scales, the terror of the raider attack, long, lonely days waiting for someone to come back. But she also felt the child's wonder at seeing her. In the dragonling's mind, Lisa appeared surrounded by warmth and light, like a guardian angel come to answer its prayers. At the same time, Lisa found her own memories flowing back to the child. Images of her childhood on Earth, her family, the love and safety she had always known. The dragonling drank in these memories like water in a desert, its eyes growing brighter with each passing second. "Hello, little one," Lisa whispered, kneeling down beside the nest. "My name is Lisa. We heard you calling and we came to help." The dragonling tried to speak, but only a small chirping sound came out. Instead, it reached out with its mind, and Lisa heard a voice that was young and scared but also filled with joy. "You came," the voice said in her thoughts. "I knew someone would come eventually. Mother said that love always finds a way." Lisa felt tears running down her cheeks. The connection between them was growing stronger by the second, and she could feel the child's desperate need for affection and care. Without thinking, she reached out and gently stroked the dragonling's head. Its scales were warm and smooth under her fingers. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked. "Keth," came the reply. "My name is Keth." Dr. Rodriguez had finished his medical scan and was shaking his head in amazement. "This is incredible. His vital signs are stabilizing just from having contact with Lisa. His stress hormones are dropping, and his brain activity is increasing. Whatever kind of bond they're forming, it's having immediate physical effects." Jake and Rick were keeping watch at the doorway, but they could hear everything that was happening. Jake had seen a lot of strange things in his years exploring the galaxy, but this was something special. The connection between Lisa and the dragonling was so obvious that even non-telepaths could sense it. "Lisa," Jake said gently, "ask him if he's injured. We need to know if it's safe to move him." Lisa relayed the question, and Keth's response came back immediately. "I am not hurt on the outside, but I have been very sick inside. I was dying of loneliness, but now you are here and I feel better already." "He says he's not physically injured," Lisa translated, "but he's been suffering from some kind of emotional illness. I think his species needs social contact to survive, like dolphins or wolves on Earth." Dr. Rodriguez nodded. That would explain why his condition is improving so rapidly, now that he has someone to bond with. "Lisa, I think you've literally saved his life just by being here." Keth struggled to sit up in his nest, and Lisa gently helped him. Even though he was weak, she could feel his happiness radiating through their mental link. For the first time in months, the little Dragonling was not alone. "Are you going to take me with you?" Keth asked through their connection. "I do not want to stay here anymore. This place is full of sad memories." Lisa looked back at Jake, who nodded immediately. "Tell him he's coming home with us. We'll take good care of him." As Lisa translated Jake's words, Keth's joy exploded through their mental link like fireworks. His scales began to shimmer with the first hints of their original golden color, and his eyes sparkled with new life. "Thank you," Keth whispered in Lisa's mind. "Thank you for not leaving me alone." But even as they prepared to take Keth to safety, none of them knew that their rescue mission had been detected by long-range sensors. Somewhere in deep space, a massive hegemony warship was already changing course for Zephyria Prime. The little Dragonling's new family was about to face their first real test. Keth was sleeping peacefully in his new nest aboard the Starfire when the alarm started blaring. Lisa, who had been sitting beside him for the past 6 hours, felt his mind stir with confusion and fear as the loud sounds woke him up. "What is happening?" Keth asked through their mental link, his golden eyes wide with worry. "I don't know yet, little one," Lisa replied, gently stroking his scales to keep him calm. "But don't worry. We'll keep you safe." Captain Jake's voice came over the ship's communication system, tense but controlled. "All crew to battle stations. We have a large ship approaching fast. Hegemony Council markings." Lisa's heart sank. The Hegemony Council was the military arm of the galactic government. If they were here, it meant someone had reported the Starfire's unauthorized landing on Zephyria Prime. She picked up Keth carefully and headed for the bridge, feeling his small body trembling against her chest. The bridge was buzzing with activity when she arrived. Amy was at her navigation station, tracking the incoming ship. Ben had come up from engineering to help manage power systems. Dr. Rodriguez and Rick Stone were also there, along with the rest of the senior crew. "How big is it?" Jake asked Amy. "It's a Dominion-class dreadnought," Amy replied, her voice tight. 3 times our size with enough firepower to turn us into space dust." On the main viewing screen, the approaching ship looked like a massive gray wedge cutting through space. Its hull was covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays, and it moved with the cold precision of a predator stalking its prey. Jake activated the communications system. Almost immediately, a harsh alien voice filled the bridge. The speaker was a member of the Vorthon species with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. "Human vessel Starfire, this is Commander Zach of the Hegemony Warship Dominion. You are in violation of Galactic Authority restrictions. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Jake looked around at his crew, then at Lisa holding Keth. He could see the determination in everyone's eyes. These people had risked their careers to save one lonely child, and they were not about to give him up now. "This is Captain Sullivan of the Starfire," Jake replied. "We are on a humanitarian mission. We rescued a survivor from the Zephyria attack." "There are no survivors." Commander Zach's voice was flat and cold. "The planet was declared extinct. Any creatures you may have found are now property of the Hegemony Council. You will surrender them immediately." Lisa felt Keth's fear spike through their mental connection. The little Dragonling pressed closer to her, his small claws gripping her uniform. "They want to take me away, don't they?" Keth asked in her mind. "Over my dead body," Lisa whispered back, not caring who heard her. Ben Carter stepped forward, his big hands clenched into fists. "Property? Did that cold-blooded lizard just call Keth property?" "The Hegemony classifies all Dragonlings as dangerous telepathic weapons," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. "They've been trying to capture or eliminate them for decades." Jake made his decision. "Commander Zach, we decline your request. The child is under human protection now. You have 30 seconds to comply or we will take your ship by force," came the reply. The 30 seconds passed in tense silence. Then the Dominion fired, but not to destroy. Instead, they used a tractor beam to lock onto the Starfire and pull it into their massive cargo bay. "Boarding pods launching," Amy reported. "They're coming aboard." Jake turned to his crew. "Remember, we're not fighting the Hegemony. We're protecting a child. There's a difference." 10 minutes later, the Starfire's airlocks opened and Hegemony soldiers poured into the ship. They were a mix of different alien species, all wearing the same gray uniforms and carrying advanced weapons. They moved through the corridors like they owned the place, searching every room. When they reached the bridge, Commander Zach was with them. He was tall and thin, with the cold, calculating eyes of someone who saw everything in terms of military objectives. His gaze fell on Keth immediately. "So this is the specimen," he said, stepping closer to Lisa and Keth. "It appears to be a juvenile Zephyrian dragonling. These creatures are extremely dangerous when fully grown." "He's not dangerous," Lisa said firmly, holding Keth closer. "He's just a frightened child who needs love and care." Commander Zack laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Love? Care? You humans always think with your emotions instead of your brains. This creature is a telepathic weapon. In the wrong hands, it could control entire populations." Keth was trembling now, his fear flowing through the mental link to Lisa. But there was something else coming through the connection. Lisa could feel Keith's power stirring, responding to the threat against his new family. "You will hand over the creature now," Commander Zack ordered, reaching for Kith. "No," Jake said, stepping between the hegemony commander and Lisa. "You want him? You go through us first." The rest of the crew moved to stand with their captain. Ben, Amy, Dr. Rodriguez, Rick, and even the junior crew members formed a protective circle around Lisa and Keth. They had no weapons, and they were facing trained soldiers, but none of them budged. Commander Zack raised his weapon. "Stand aside, or we will move you by force." That was when Keth's power exploded outward. The little dragonling had been listening to the threats against his new family, feeling their love and protection through Lisa's mind. For the first time in his life, he had people who cared about him, and he was not going to let anyone hurt them. The soldiers' weapons simply stopped working. Commander Zack squeezed his trigger again and again, but nothing happened. The other hegemony troops found their equipment failing all around them. Their communication devices went dead, their scanners shut down, and even their armor began to malfunction. "What is happening?" Commander Zack demanded, shaking his useless weapon. Keth's golden eyes were glowing now, and his scales had brightened to their full amber brilliance. The power flowing from him was not violent or destructive. Instead, it felt like pure protection, like a parent shielding their child from harm. Through their mental link, Lisa could feel what Keth was doing. He was not attacking the soldiers. He was simply making it impossible for them to hurt his family. Their weapons would not fire, their restraints would not lock, and their transportation systems would not function as long as they posed a threat to the people Keth loved. "Impossible," Commander Zack whispered. "The creature is too young to have this kind of power." "Love makes us all stronger than we think we can be," Lisa said, gently stroking Keth's head. "Something your people have forgotten." Dr. Rodriguez was scanning Keth with his medical equipment. His psychic output is off the charts, but his vital signs are stable. The power is coming from his emotional state, not from physical stress. Commander Zack tried to call for reinforcements, but his communication device remained dead. He looked around at his soldiers, who were staring at their malfunctioning equipment in confusion and fear. "This is not over," he said finally. "The Hegemony Council will not allow a dangerous weapon to remain in human hands." "Then maybe the Hegemony Council needs to learn the difference between a weapon and a child," Jake replied. As the Hegemony soldiers retreated to their ship, Keth's power gradually faded. The little dragonling was exhausted from the effort, but he was also proud. For the first time in his life, he had been able to protect someone instead of just needing protection. "Did I do good?" he asked Lisa through their mental link. "You did perfect, sweetheart," Lisa whispered, tears of pride in her eyes. "You protected your family." But even as the immediate danger passed, everyone knew this was just the beginning. Word of what had happened would spread quickly through hegemony channels. Soon, more ships would come, and they would be ready for Keth's abilities. The Starfire was released from the Dominion's cargo bay, but they were not allowed to leave the system. Commander Zack's final message was clear: surrender the creature, or face the full might of the hegemony fleet. As the crew gathered on the bridge to plan their next move, Keth looked up at Lisa with his bright golden eyes. "I am sorry I brought trouble to you," he said softly in her mind. "Don't you ever apologize for that," Lisa replied firmly. "Family protects family. That's what we do. And you're our family now, no matter what anyone else says." The Starfire raced through space toward the edge of human territory, but they were not alone. Behind them, 6 hegemony warships followed like hungry wolves chasing a wounded deer. On the bridge, the crew worked frantically to keep their ship ahead of their pursuers. "They're gaining on us," Amy reported from her navigation station. "Their ships are faster than ours." "How long until we reach the human border?" Jake asked. 4 hours at current speed," Amy replied. "But they'll catch us in 2. In the ship's observation lounge, Lisa sat with Keth in his new nest. The little dragonling had grown stronger over the past few days, his scales now bright with health and happiness, but the stress of being hunted was taking its toll on both of them. "I can feel their minds," Keth said through their mental link. "They are very angry. They think I am dangerous." "You're not dangerous, sweetheart," Lisa replied, gently stroking his head. "You're just special. Some people are afraid of things they don't understand." Keth looked up at her with his large golden eyes. "What will happen if they catch us?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. She did not want to lie to Keth, but she also did not want to frighten him more than he already was. "I don't know," she said finally. "But I promise you this, we will never let them take you away from us. You're part of our family now." On the bridge, Jake was making the hardest decision of his life. He opened a communication channel and sent an emergency message toward human space. "This is Captain Jake Sullivan of the exploration vessel Starfire," he said. "We are carrying a refugee child and are being pursued by hegemony forces. We are requesting immediate assistance." The reply came back faster than anyone expected. Admiral Grace Kelly's voice filled the bridge. Strong and clear despite the distance. "Captain Sullivan, this is Admiral Kelly of the 3rd Human Fleet. We received Dr. Martinez's full report about your rescue mission. What is your current situation?" Jake quickly explained about the pursuing hegemony ships and their demand that Keth be surrendered. When he finished, there was a long silence from the other end of the communication. Finally, Admiral Kelly spoke again. "Captain, you need to know that what you've done has caused quite a stir back home. The news about the Dragonling has spread through human space like wildfire. People are calling him the lost child of the stars." "Ma'am?" Jake was confused. "The public has adopted your little refugee," Admiral Kelly explained. "There are protests outside hegemony embassies on 20 different worlds. Children are holding fundraisers to help pay for his care. The media is calling this the biggest human interest story in decades." Lisa felt a warm glow of pride through her connection with Keth. Even though he could not understand all the words, he could sense the love and support flowing from billions of humans he had never met. "Admiral, the hegemony is demanding we turn Keth over to them," Jake said. "They claim he's too dangerous to remain free." "Over my dead body," Admiral Kelly replied firmly. "Captain, I want you to maintain your current course. Do not surrender that child under any circumstances. Help is on the way." 2 hours later, as the hegemony ships were closing in for the final attack, space around the Starfire suddenly lit up with the blue glow of hyperspace exits. Ship after ship appeared, forming a protective wall between the small exploration vessel and its pursuers. The 3rd Human Fleet had arrived. Admiral Kelly's flagship, the HMS Terra Nova, took position directly in front of the Starfire. Around it, dozens of other human ships spread out in battle formation. Destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels all stood ready to defend one small dragonling, who had captured the hearts of an entire species. Commander Zach's voice came over the communication channels, cold and threatening. "Human Fleet, you are interfering with Hegemony Council business. Stand down immediately." Admiral Kelly's reply was broadcast to both fleets. "Commander, you are threatening a refugee child under human protection. It is you who should stand down." "The creature is a dangerous telepathic weapon," Commander Zach insisted. "It cannot be allowed to roam free." "The only thing I see here is a scared little boy who needs a family," Admiral Kelly shot back. "And we intend to give him one." The standoff continued for several tense hours. Neither side wanted to start a war, but neither was willing to back down either. In the observation lounge, Keth was growing more distressed by the minute. He could feel the anger and fear radiating from both fleets, and it was making him sick. "They are all so angry," he whispered to Lisa. "All because of me." "Not because of you," Lisa corrected gently. "Because people sometimes forget what's really important." That was when Keth made a decision that would change galactic history forever. The little dragonling reached out with his mind, not just to Lisa or the crew of the Starfire, but to every person in both fleets. His psychic voice touched the minds of thousands of beings, human and alien alike. But instead of using his power to attack or defend, Keth did something much more powerful. He shared his memories and emotions with everyone who could hear him. Through their connection with Keth, every person in both fleets experienced what it felt like to be truly loved and accepted. They felt the warmth of Lisa's care, the protection of the Starfire's crew, and the joy of finally having a family after months of terrible loneliness. They felt what it was like to be completely innocent and helpless, and to have people choose to risk everything just to keep you safe. They experienced the pure, unconditional love that Keth felt for his human family, and the desperate gratitude of a child who had been saved from dying alone. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. On the hegemony ships, soldiers who had been ready for battle found themselves thinking about their own children back home. Commanders who had seen Keth as a weapon began to see him as what he really was, a frightened little boy who just wanted to be loved. On the human ships, crews who had come ready to fight instead found themselves moved to tears by the depth of Keth's affection for his adoptive family. They felt his wonder at simple human kindness, his joy at being read bedtime stories, and his amazement at the concept of unconditional love. Commander Zach, who had never experienced anything like parental love in his own cold upbringing, found himself completely overwhelmed by the emotions flowing through the psychic link. For the first time in his life, he understood what humans meant when they talked about family. When the mental connection finally faded, both fleets floated in stunned silence. Many of the soldiers on both sides were openly crying, moved by the pure innocence and love they had experienced through Keth's mind. Commander Zach's voice, when it finally came over the communication channels, was completely different from before. The cold military precision was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like wonder. "Admiral Kelly," he said slowly, "I think we may have been mistaken about the nature of this creature. His name is Keth," Admiral Kelly replied gently, "and yes, I think you were." The crisis ended not with weapons or threats, but with understanding. The hegemony fleet withdrew, but not before Commander Zach sent a personal message to the Starfire. "Captain Sullivan," he said, "please tell the young one that some of us are sorry for frightening him. We did not understand." Over the following months, everything changed. The Hegemony Council, faced with reports of what their soldiers had experienced through Keth's psychic link, began reviewing their policies about Dragonlings and other telepathic species. Several member worlds demanded new laws protecting refugee children, regardless of their species or abilities. Keth became the first official interspecies adoptee in human space, with legal protections that had never existed before. The Starfire was designated as his official home, and the crew became his legal guardians. But more importantly, Keth's story inspired others. Across the galaxy, people began looking for other survivors of the Void Raider attacks. Orphanages were built on human worlds specifically for alien children who had lost their families. The concept of interspecies adoption spread from one system to another, creating families that would have been impossible just a few years before. 1 year after his rescue, Keth stood in the observation lounge of the Starfire, watching the stars go by. He was bigger now, his scales bright and healthy, his mind strong and clear. Through the ship's communication system, he could hear the voices of other rescued children calling out from across the galaxy, and he always answered them with the same message: "You are not alone. Someone is coming for you." Lisa found him there as she did every evening, ready to read him a bedtime story from Earth. As she sat down beside his nest, Keth looked up at her with eyes full of love and contentment. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked through their mental link. "Giving up your old life to take care of me?" Lisa smiled and gently stroked his scales. "Keth, my love, you didn't take away my old life. You gave me a better one. You made me part of something bigger than myself." As she began to read, Keth curled up in his nest and let the familiar sound of her voice wash over him. Outside the window, the stars sparkled like distant promises, and somewhere among them, other lonely children were hearing his message of hope. Love, it turned out, really could cross any distance, even the vast emptiness between the stars. And sometimes, the most important discoveries were not new worlds or technologies, but the simple truth that every child, no matter how different,